Hi, I'm Chris Roselli.
And I'm Clara Lewis. Welcome to Western Window, a show made for you by the students at Western Washington University.
This time, we'll take a closer look at a unique theater program that pairs middle schoolers with college students. We'll go inside the vaults at Western's Heritage Resources.
We'll visit a very important outreach center right here on Western's campus and more. So stay with us as we explore our world through Western Window.
The Fairhaven Monologue Project started in 2005 as a collaboration between Fairhaven Middle School and Western Washington University. This unique theater program pairs Western students with middle schoolers who write and perform a series of sad, funny, and often intense monologues from the middle schoolers' perspective.
How's everyone doing? Oh, I'm so excited to see all of you. Welcome everybody to the Monologue Project, round 7. This is 7 years. 7 years.
Step right up!
We have an emergency.
The bear's moving.
Basically, the collaboration is between the Fairhaven Middle School 8th grade students of Joel Gilman and my 260, Theater 260 students, which is a sophomore level acting class. Mr. Gilman's students learned how to write monologues, and then they each wrote this year 16 monologues, all between 300 and 500 words each. Took a collection of those monologues and they were sent up the hill to my Theater 260 students, who then went through the stack of monologues, and they each selected 2 monologues that they would perform.
We are not everything. We're not nothing. We're a speck in the universe. We're not old or experienced. We're along for the ride, which has only just begun.
And I know you don't believe me, and I know you have no reason to believe me, but she's an assassin sent from Menafrod. Everyone works for him. And you see his symbol everywhere, but you don't realize it because it's so ingrained in your minds.
For some reason, I thought this big sleeping bear was a big comfy furry mattress. It sounds ridiculous, I know. But in my defense, I was tired and cold and lonely and a little scared. And honestly, the bear wasn't making any noise at first.
So after that performance, we had a talk back with the playwrights and the actors so they could meet each other and give each other feedback. And we also just discussed kind of the process and the experience from both the writers and the actors.
When I first read the monologue, I kind of knew exactly who he was. It was the character that I was embodying, was someone that, just a character I've had in my imagination for a lot of years. It's a tough job, being the ruler of the galaxy, but, well, someone's got to do it, so why not me? That's what I asked myself when I first ran for election, but I never imagined it would be this hard.
But the one about writing and not being able to write was kind of more of a thoughtful one, where it was just like, it's funny, but it's funny because everyone's kind of experienced it. When you want to write, but you don't really know how, and just trying to find your own way of expressing yourself.
Now I have imagination, for sure, for sure. But I can't write stories. Now when our teacher asks us to write, he doesn't really give us a preference of what to write, as long as we write something. Now most other people write long fictitious stories on anything from ogres and wizards to vampires and girls with no emotion.
I wanted, precisely for contrast, I wanted something that was totally different, a totally different character, a different approach, like that was more kind of an adult kind of thing. So that's how I chose the second, which was actually the first model without change.
Forget about the stereotypes, the pressures of things you should be. Don't let yourself be contained or defined by a category. Own your individuality. If you think of yourself as in the box, then that's what you'll be.
Well, my colleague in this project, Joel Gilman, talks all the time about the voice of the 8th grader that comes out of this project as being kind of the canary in the coal mine. as a test, as a litmus test of kind of where our culture is and where our culture might be going. So to hear kind of these collective thoughts, you know, when you get 50 monologues from 50 different voices of 8th graders, it kind of gives you an overall impression of where their thinking is. To write 300 to 500 words in a monologue, to write 16 of them is an amazing feat. And then to write 16 of them and to find the courage within yourself to also say, I'm going to perform my monologue, is such a courageous act that, again, I think we need to give credit to this young age group for, they have a lot to say to our culture if we're willing to listen to them.
2 out of 3 people pick Bing over Google.
With a new group of 8th graders every year and a new group of college performers every year, it's always a fresh voice that comes to the audience.
Differences in someone's day made it a little better, brighter, easier, that feeling. I live for that feeling.
Hi, welcome to Western Window. Today I'm with Elizabeth Jofreon, who is the Director of Heritage Resources here at Western Washington University. So tell us a little bit about Heritage Resources.
Well, Heritage Resources is 2 things. First of all, it's the collections that we have, and the collections consist of what we call primary source material. So the kinds of things that people create in the course of their lives. So letters that you've written, photographs that you've taken, even in some cases born digital material that's being produced by the university or by people associated with the university. So our responsibility is to care for that and make it accessible long term so that people can use it for research. And then sort of what is Heritage Resources? It consists of 3 different departments around campus. First is the campus special collections. The second is the University Archives, and the third is the Center for Pacific Northwest Studies, which collects materials on regional history, culture, and economy.
And so Special Collections, which is in the Library, Archives, which is?
Down in the Archives building on the south side of campus, Bill McDonald Parkway and 25th Street. It's a building that we share with the State Archives, so kind of a unique relationship, and the Center for Pacific Northwest Studies is in that building as well.
And you mentioned about digital media as well as print. Can you tell me a little bit more about your collections with digital versus print and how that's changing?
Right. You know, traditionally we brought in materials that were created on paper. We don't have anything as far back as the clay tablets, but we have some older materials. I think our oldest artifact goes back to the 1600s. It's a history written by Sir Walter Raleigh, one of the early editions of that book. But traditionally, most things were generated in paper form, and obviously in our lifetimes, digital content has become more and more common. And it's the way, obviously, that the university is conducting its business. So the University Archives function is to preserve both the administration and the history, the administrative history and the scholarly history of the university. And so increasingly those materials are born digital. They never see paper, right? And so one of our challenges right now is to try to find ways to provide long-term preservation, long-term access to these materials and appropriate stewardship of the materials over time. And increasingly as we approach individuals who are donating their personal papers or manuscripts, someone who's had a life of some significance that's worth documenting in terms of their historical relevance, their materials are born digital as well, so we're grappling with that. We took in the congressional papers of both Al Swift and Jack Metcalf, and Jack Metcalf was, left office maybe 10 years ago or so, and you know, a lot of his material came to us on floppy disks, which are now obsolete, right?
Yep.
So one of our challenges is try to figure out how to create those or maintain those digital formats over time and make them accessible. So I don't have the solution to it personally, but, but I'm very invested in trying to assist Western in developing solutions that I think will work long term.
And then how do you determine what is put on display?
It depends on the audience, you know. We have a lot of different constituencies, so I think for the campus constituency, we try to find materials that feature our collections well, that pull together materials in a thematic way that would be of interest. So I think we've been talking a good bit lately about protest periods, you know, the protest periods in the 60s on campus and what that was like. We've been digitizing the Western Front, the campus newspaper, and so we've had a lot of immersion lately into different periods in campus, and I think in campus history, and I think that period was particularly interesting. It was almost as if 1968 things just turned, and this was common on campuses across the country. And so the ability to pull together some resources that we have in the collection we thought would be of interest to students and faculty alike.
Do you partner with like our local Whatcom Museum or any other museums?
We have.
Sharing?
We've historically had partnerships. We have complementary collections, particularly photograph collections about area history, and have done joint exhibits in the past. I'd be quite interested in doing more of that in the future. We've also partnered with Bellingham Public Library, and I think as I move into developing digital initiatives so that we're creating exhibits that predominantly are online, or curriculum or materials that others can use, I see important collaborative efforts, both with the local community, but certainly with institutions of higher education throughout the region.
Sure. So what would you say to somebody who came up to you and said, okay, you know what, these are tight times economically. If I want to know about the Pacific Northwest fisheries, I can Google it. So what would you say to that person?
Well, what would you get with Google? Well, we create what we call finding aids. We contribute those finding aids. They're available both through our website, but through something called Northwest Digital Archives. So if you searched on salmon in Northwest Digital Archives, what that brings to you is a listing of all of the resource materials from 37 different institutions in the region. So you're able to get a real sense of all of the materials that are available in this part of the country. Google will bring you materials that may or may not be relevant and a real slice of different kinds of things, but maybe not that primary source material.
Sure.
So it may bring you an essay written by someone who may or may not know anything about Pacific Northwest fisheries, but it won't bring you access to the original documents.
Yeah, well, good. Well, thanks so much for coming into the studio with us today.
Pleasure.
Yeah, it's nice to meet you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right.
Revolution.
Something to do with technology.
MySpace, Facebook, texting, all that kind of stuff.
The coming of the internet has kind of brought people together.
I like to think of like the Terminator, like, you know, robots taking over the world. Pretty sure that's what that is.
Do you think you use it in your everyday life?
Every day, yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, in some sort of way. I feel like every time, at least with my phone, like every time I open it up, like there'll be some notification coming in from a certain application that I have or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, college student laptops, essays, phones, texting.
I do actually, whether it's school or social things.
Do you think it's good, bad, or kind of both?
It just kind of is what it is. Like,
I mean, like, it's convenient. I don't think it's. If you think about it, it's kind of dumb too, because like we put all our information on there too, and so like if somebody gets into one thing, they can get into all your information.
I think it's a good thing mostly. It allows people to collaborate, new ideas to come out.
People are always on their cell phones, and I don't know, not like really face-to-face communication as much anymore, but I don't know, it's good and bad in some ways.
The digital revolution, as far as I understand it, is just the notion and kind of what the world's going through right now, where everything is kind of turning away from traditional, the way the media's worked in the past, where the internet's kind of blowing up, YouTube's becoming like this huge thing, the way this way to transmit information and media to a lot of people at once. And so the way I understand it is just that everything's becoming way more crowdsourced. People are able to get their paws on just really good equipment for not really big amounts of money anymore, where you're seeing the consumer markets for video equipment, film equipment, just everything's so accessible now.
So a digital revolution is how we're using technology in both the workplace and also in the university, and how those two things are bleeding together. It's amazing, in just the last 5 years, I've incorporated social media and use of technology in the classroom so much more than I had when I had first started at Western. And the students are actually coming with more and more technology expertise before the quarter even begins. So the students are also teaching me. In terms of Western, we're in a great place because we're positioning students to be professionals in their field, and all those fields want students who are well versed in technology. The cons from my standpoint, since I've been in my field for over 20 years, it's difficult because I see the changes happening so much that I too need to keep up with them, and at some point it seems like things go faster than we can actually keep up with. So in that way, it's a little bit of a disadvantage. What I'd like to see the most is an integration between interpersonal and the technology so that students are really getting the skills they need in terms of social media and other tools that they'll use in the workplace, but really always understanding the fundamental about the interpersonal communication, the eye contact, the way we communicate non-verbally, the language that we use, and also understanding that in different cultures we communicate differently. That's aside from the technology. The bottom line with technology is that it is neutral. It can be used in a positive way or it can be used in a negative way. And I hope that students gain from being students at Western to use technology in positive ways in their disciplines and in nonprofit work and throughout the world.
According to Washington state law, every public high school is encouraged to include in its curriculum instruction on the events of the period of modern world history known as the Holocaust, during which 6 million Jews and millions of non-Jews were exterminated. The Northwest Center for Holocaust, Genocide, and Ethnocide Education is a project begun in September of 1998 and is dedicated to remembering and learning from the past in order to promote the human rights of all people.
The Northwest Center for Holocaust, Genocide, and Ethnocide Education is a place for students and teachers who need information on survivorship of the past, present, and future. A visit to Miller Hall 404B will provide you everything you need. But don't just take our word for it. Come listen to the Center supporters.
My name is Ray Walpo. I'm a professor of secondary education at Western Washington University and director of the Northwest Center for Holocaust, Genocide, and Ethnocide Education.
My name is An, and I'm the graduate research assistant for the Northwest Holocaust Center.
I am Jim Lortz, still Jim Lortz from WWU here, Drama Department.
My name is Noemi Ban. I'm a Holocaust survivor.
Well, amongst other reasons, we have a responsibility to make sure we learn lessons from the past. And here in the Woodring College of Education, we responded to Washington State House Bill 2212, which instructs all secondary schools in the state of Washington to include instruction about the period known as the Holocaust, as well as other genocidal events, with the hope, our legislators said, to protect, to make sure in a free society something like that doesn't happen again. When you don't know about something, there is no chance that you can play an active part in preventing things from going on. Our center started as a Center for Holocaust Education and has expanded over the years to a Center for Holocaust, Genocide, and Ethnocide Education. And that's because not so long ago, when terrible things were happening in the Sudan, students here at Western came to me and said, isn't this something the Center for Holocaust Education should be addressing?
Well, I think what's really great about the center is we bring a lot of awareness to others. By putting on the events and workshops and by providing all of the resources that we do, I think what's great is we incorporate the idea of education, so we have a lot of resources for educators.
And this organization makes it sure that it will be teaching, listening, and will be able to openly discuss what was the Holocaust.
And I've just learned so much about the issues, like a lot more about also current issues. I focus specifically on genocide in Darfur, so I've been reading a lot of books that pertain to that issue, not so much of the Holocaust. So that's been really eye-opening, and I've gotten a lot more knowledge about what's occurring over there.
I had a sabbatical 6 years ago, and I wanted to do something interesting, so I called Mommy and said, "Can I make a documentary about you?" And she said, "Sure, but let me ask my son first." So he said, "Of course." She's still healing from this terrible historical occasion that happened not too long ago. It's frightening to think that it was really only 60-some years ago. The first time I saw it was with my cast, and I remember watching them watch her, and I just saw them all of a sudden go, "I'm looking at history. I'm really touching history that is real and is tangible," and it makes it so much more real. And to hear her delightful Hungarian accent, of course we joke about that, we say, "What accent?" But to hear her tell the story, it gives a face and a voice and a presence to something that we do just read about usually.
The importance, it starts why I'm speaking about it. Why? It happened many years ago. But I always say when I speak that if we look at the history when it happened, it's in history, it happened yesterday.
The focus that we're going to now, we started with the Northwest Center for Holocaust Education to the Northwest Center for Holocaust, Genocide, and Ethnocide Education, and now we're about to become the Northwest Share Center, the Center for Survivorship, Healing, Advocacy, Empowerment, and Resiliency Education. And what we plan to do here is to invite survivors of all kinds of violence, suffering, and oppression to be part of us in gathering stories and learning lessons from those who have survived atrocities.
Grandma came to me saying that my grandson heard you speaking at the school. And when they read in the newspaper that you will be speaking, they said, "Grandma, Grandpa, you have to go. I won't talk to you if you don't." Kids talking. But then this means what? Generation to generation, even backwards. And that shows the importance of it.
Recent fossil finds are providing new clues about how dinosaurs lived. For example, discoveries have revealed that many dinosaurs had feathers, which has forced researchers to take a new look at how dinosaurs may have behaved. Award-winning professor of paleontology and geology Tor Hansen regularly takes students and community members on explorations of the fossil record, and some of the conclusions are surprising.
I'm Tor Hansen. I'm a professor in the geology department here at Western Washington University. I'm a paleontologist, which means I study fossils. As part of teaching dinosaurs, you need to have a lot of skeletons of modern animals. We don't know much about dinosaurs. Dinosaurs are all gone. There's nothing really like them that lives today. So we try to reconstruct how they lived by looking at the life habits of animals today that are either related to dinosaurs or kind of look like dinosaurs, kind of look like they might do something similar to what dinosaurs did. This alligator came from an alligator farm in Florida, and so I called them up and asked them to send me a dead alligator, which they did. Second day UPS. So reptile teeth, modern reptile teeth tend to be simple and all the same. So this alligator has all sort of spiky teeth with a simple root. They don't have them differentiated into molars or incisors or anything like that. All the alligator does is grab an animal and then tear off pieces of the animal and swallow it whole. A Tyrannosaurus, there's a 1/4 scale model of a Tyrannosaurus jaw right here, or whole skull. You can see their teeth are very similar to the croc teeth. They're just sort of spikes. So I got this emu from an emu farm on Mount Baker Highway. It's probably the bird that lives today that's most similar to a dinosaur. In Jurassic Park, there was a dinosaur called Gallimimus that looked like an ostrich that ran across in a herd across the scene. very similar to an emu. The only difference really would be the emu doesn't have, well, it has little arms, but not big arms. Emu doesn't have a big tail, but although it's got a fairly decent tail right here, unlike most birds. Otherwise, very similar to a dinosaur. The velociraptor was made famous in Jurassic Park because it's that fast, ferocious thing that has the little retractable sickle-shaped claw on its hind leg. So there's the claw with the two running toes right there. Here's a claw core from a velociraptor. And it's very interesting, the velociraptors and the other dinosaurs like it are very closely related to birds. If you look at your finger, for instance, you have a nail on it, but the nail is on the finger and there's a bone inside the finger. So the actual velociraptor had some tissue over this claw, and then the nail was on top of that. Where you take this red-tailed hawk, it's got 3 toes in front and 1 toe in back, a big grasping claw right here. This is the claw core from the other foot. You can see how very similar that is to the velociraptor. Same general shape, has the same knob here where the muscle would attach to retract it. I started teaching a dinosaur course about 15 years ago, I think. I had to stop boiling heads in the kitchen because it's bad. But you learn.
That wraps up this episode of Western Window.
Be sure to tune in next time as we explore the world at and around Western Washington University.